The year was 1922. Civil war breaks out in Ireland. The first issue of Reader's Digest is published in the United States. A successful insulin treatment for diabetes takes place in Canada. And on March 19th, 1922, Judith Kaplan becomes the first young woman to celebrate having a bat mitzvah, which means in the year 2022, we are now celebrating 100 years of women coming up on the bimah, coming of age in our Jewish tradition. Judith's father, Mordechai Kaplan, a well-known rabbi and figure in the Jewish world, he was ordained at the Jewish Theological Seminary, founder of Reconstructionist Judaism, and he said that he had 4 reasons why he wanted the idea of a bat mitzvah to exist. Can you guess those 4 reasons? His 4 daughters. Judith Kaplan said, on the Shabbat morning of my bat mitzvah, we all went together, father, mother, disapproving grandmothers, and my 3 little sisters and I, to the brownstone building on 86th Street in New York City, where the Society for the Advancement of Judaism carried out all of its functions. She stood up on the bimah, she read from the Chumash, and perhaps without even thinking of it, started a movement. And when asked about that very day, Judith explained, the moment was fairly uneventful. No thunder sounded and no lightning struck. Meaning for Judith and her family, in her community, it didn't necessarily feel as if she was making a life-changing move, and yet joining young men in this ancient tradition, she changed the course of Jewish history. So that when I had my bat mitzvah in 1994, sounds like a long time ago, yes, 1994, I didn't think twice. There was no conversation about what I would do differently, no discussion at all about whether or not I would read from the Torah or deliver a drash. That was a given. It was a given because of the bumpy road that was paved well before my coming of age. A road paved by women and men many of us have never had the honor of meeting. But let me tell you about one woman, a woman that never saw herself as a heroine, a woman that deeply loved Sinai Temple, Jewish ritual, felt ingrained in the fabric of this community, of this special place. In 1944, Doris Siegel, then Doris Lampart, stood on this bimah as the first woman at Sinai Temple to become a bat mitzvah. Her father approached then Rabbi Cohn and said, "Rabbi, since I have no daughters," does it sound familiar? "Could my daughter Doris read from the Torah on Shavuot?" And Rabbi Cohn said yes. When I asked one of Doris's daughters, Judge Susan Lopez Giss, why do you think Doris was the first? Susan explained, well, it was World War II. Men were off fighting at the war. Many women were engaged in new responsibilities here in the States. And after hearing her father's request, Doris felt called to read from the Torah. In a world of uncertainty, Sinai Temple was her anchor, even then. She knew that any issue occurring in the world or within the synagogue would eventually pass, but overall, the synagogue would always be her home. So why wouldn't she stand on this very bimah with her confirmation class, read from our tradition, and represent Sinai Temple with pride and conviction? And before I go any further, I just want you to know that Doris's loving family is here in the congregation today. Oh, before you clap, listen to this. I want to tell you something very remarkable about the first bat mitzvah at Sinai Temple. That first bat mitzvah, Doris Siegel, well, she would eventually become the first female president to serve on Sinai Temple's board of directors. And that's right, that deserves it. And this is what I want you to remember. Susan, Doris's daughter, explained that Doris's peers at the time, mostly men, encouraged Doris to run for president. Some of the names might sound familiar. Alan Ziegler, Harold Easton, Herman Platt, of course, Doris's beloved husband, Milton. They all saw something special in this woman. They saw a leader. They saw a visionary. And because of this first bat mitzvah, because of this first female president, that road I was talking about, well, I now have the privilege of standing up here as a rabbi, not even the first female rabbi at Sinai Temple. I believe I'm the second. And what I glean from this story is that we are all incumbent on seeing the light in someone else and remembering when we encourage someone else's light to shine, we become change makers. We set the world in motion in ways we can only imagine. Last week, we celebrated the holiday of Purim. We know that Queen Esther is known for her courage, her determination. She saved the Jewish people from the hands of evil Haman. Mordecai learns of Haman's plans and realizes that the only person that can deliver the Jewish people is Esther. And so he says to her the following, Esther, perhaps you have attained your royal position for a crisis exactly like this. And she hears him and responds, then I shall go to the king. If I am to perish, I will perish. In other words, Mordecai saw greatness in this woman. He believed in her. And he offered his own words to remind Esther to believe in herself. As I told you, I took it for granted that I became a bat mitzvah. But when I became a rabbi, it wasn't a profession that I first saw in myself. Lawyer, maybe, journalist, perhaps. But others saw rabbi in me. Rabbi Artson, the dean of the Ziegler School, he was the first. My rabbi at Congregation Eilat in Mission Viejo. Yes, there are Jews in Mission Viejo. Over and over again, he would encourage me to lead services and speak from the bima, and my cantor, Chazan, Yosef Chazan, wouldn't let a Shabbat go by without asking me to read from the Torah. At UCLA, Rabbi Chaim Seidlerfeller, my rabbi at Hillel, he would ask me to teach and to lead and to create Jewish community for students and faculty. And then one day, at the Jewish Theological Seminary, I met Rabbi David Wolpe, who said, would you ever consider coming out to Sinai Temple and interning for a summer? And I agreed. It was the best summer of my life. The summer when I joined all of you. And then it was Rabbi Sherry Hirsch who said to me, would you ever consider staying here? Would you ever consider being a rabbi at Sinai Temple? As I hope you are hearing, our futures are shaped by those who are willing to plant a seed within us. Seeds of hope, seeds of confidence, seeds of faith. Since Doris Siegel had her bat mitzvah here in 1944, thousands of young women have celebrated their benot mitzvah in this very sanctuary. And since Doris Siegel became the first female president at Sinai Temple on our board of directors, 5 other women have served in this prestigious role. We cannot let this moment, this very moment, go by without pausing, reveling in the fact that within 100 years, we have almost taken for granted the fact that young women can come up on this bima and read from the Torah without thinking twice, that they can chant with pride, that they can be fully immersed within our Jewish community. And we cannot let this moment go by without pausing, without rejoicing for the fact that women are ingrained in our leadership, planting seeds, paving the way. And while sometimes I think recognition is enough in a sermon. I want to ask you to think of the following image. The image of the Kohanim lighting the menorah in the tabernacle. You know, Aaron was commanded to kindle the flame in a very particular way. He was asked to kindle the flame so that the light would stand by itself. That meant he nurtured and tended to a spark so that the light could stand without his help, so that the light could stand on its own. The way to see a brighter Jewish future is by looking at our children, looking at the next generation, and reminding those that we see as stars, particularly when they don't see themselves as stars, that they too deserve to offer their light. Without Judith Kaplan's father seeing something bright in his daughters, who knows where women would be today? Without those words of encouragement, I don't know if I would be standing here this morning. And without Doris's father, and without those that saw brilliance and passion and determination and vision within Doris Siegel, who knows if we would be able to say that her great-grandson, fourth generation, Austin, will soon be celebrating his bar mitzvah. And so for Judith Kaplan, remember, she said, no thunder sounded, no lightning struck. But here we are, 100 years later. And dare I say, because of those courageous enough to encourage women to shine, today you hear women leading a Shabbat service. And so yes, for Judith, no thunder and no lightning. But today I say with confidence, I believe the heavens are singing. And God only knows the bright lights we will witness 100 years from now. Shabbat Shalom.